Hi everyone, I'm Amber. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be reviewing the big three, or rather the main three, characters in the Percy Jackson Disney Plus adaptation by Rick Riordan and Disney Plus and his wife. And I'm excited. I am so excited. I don't think I've ever done a Percy Jackson video on here, which is a shame because I love Percy Jackson. Like, if you have seen my bookshelf in prior videos, you can see the whole first shelf is nothing but Greek mythology and Percy Jackson. Um, and then some of the second shelf. I love these characters. I grew up with them. I started reading the books in middle school, and I didn't know that the Heroes of Olympus series had came out. I read those in college. That's when I found out, like, hey, these things exist. Might as well read them. And I was able to read up to House of Hades. And then when the final one was going to be released, Blood of Olympus, I was able to be around the hype of that and um, pre order the book. There's a story behind that. I pre ordered it and it didn't come the day of. It was going to be shipped later. And I'm like, no. So then my mom went to the bookstore and like bought it and then canceled that. So yeah, I had to read it that night. I'm not a big fan of Blood of Olympus. I don't think a lot of people are. But that's a whole other story. But either way, I love this series. And when the movies came out, I was very disappointed. At first, I blamed the actors, but I was young. I didn't really think about what I was like thinking. Um, and then seeing the actors and actresses, Alexandria Daddario is a phenomenal actress. Seeing her in San Andreas, in Baywatch, in so many other movies, I was like, this woman, lady, is a wonderful actress, and I should not have shamed her. But it's part of the mistakes that we make, wanting our characters to be portrayed correctly. And I think this is what this video is going to mainly be about, that we pictured these characters, our favorite characters, a certain way. And a lot of the time, directors do not go that route in how they are supposed to look. I think with the first movies, with them not being quite that well done, we blamed the actors and we got into like nitty gritty stuff too, because we just didn't feel like it was done justice. And so we were criticizing hair color, skin color, all of the above. Um, and not to say I criticize skin color, but like I think this is a video that's going to go into that, that we should not at for any reason say that someone is not fit to play a part just because of their skin color. The person who played Grover, I do not know his name. He was not a terrible actor. I haven't seen him in anything else, but I actually thought he was one of the better, in terms of like how they portrayed his character, of the three. But that being said, I was fine with a Black Grover. That had nothing to do with it. But I think a lot of people did say things, and a lot of people didn't, because he did very well in the part, with what he was given. So that was, I think, a good thing. And now we have a person of color playing Annabeth and a person of color playing Grover. And more people are shaming our beautiful black Annabeth than the person playing Grover. And I think that has to do with the fact that we are used to a person of color playing Grover before. Um, with the person playing Percy, they were like, we can just put him in a black wig, put on contacts, he'll be fine. That was the whole thing. And I think I do blame myself for not being in the group judging people of color playing certain parts, but in that I wanted them to be portrayed correctly, and it was a little bit of not a shock, it was more sort of like, okay, they are not who we expected them to be. Um, or sorry, we are not who they are not who we expected them to look like, rather. Or what we expected them to look like. So I posted a TikTok about this. And of course, like regarding race, it's a thing that people need to talk about, how people of color are discriminated against in so many different forms. Um, and so I think this is where like it just gets really complex, where we as fans picture people a certain way. And the thing is, we picture based on like descriptions and stuff, and we have these own people in our heads, in our imagination. And when they are properly cast, or like, say, Annabeth was cast blonde hair, gray eyes, and they do well, we're like, yes, that is that person. Even if it's not the person that we picture in our head, but it's fairly close. And then thus we continue to picture them in that way, or the way we picture them in our head. But when we've pictured them a certain way in our head, and of course, like, these are people that we've imagined, they're not real people, we can only get so close. That doesn't mean that the actor or actress is going to be a phenomenal actor. And that doesn't mean that a person of color can't do better or equally as well or be as qualified. If Rick Riordan chose this person to be Annabeth, there are reasons behind it. And she is a beautiful young actress who I think, if Riordan picked her, has a lot to bring to the table. Um, but I think as fans, we get that moment where we initially, like, we notice that they are not how they were depicted. And in itself, I think is a bit of a problem. And I am guilty of that moment. But it's like, how do we even prevent that moment? Because we are told that they look one way and then they look different. If it were reversed, if Annabeth were a person of color and she was cast by a white young lady, then this would be a very different conversation, and it would be, I don't even think, talked about, other than they would say that it's discrimination. But I I think that Rick knows what he's doing, and he said people of any color, any ethnicity, any religion could audition, and they auditioned and they got the part. And I am excited to see what they bring to the table. And the thing is, and it shouldn't be this way, when a person who does not look originally like the character does a great job at portraying the character, they become that character for me. But it should be that I should look at them and be like, no, you are the character. But how does that happen without us seeing their acting first? And how does that not feel wrong as well? It's just all these different things where I hate talking about these things because I always am afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing, or it's because it's such a touchy subject, and it should be. But I think a lot of people also, it's hard to talk about. And I think we should be able to have a much more open discussion where it doesn't feel like we're being watched. And I'm not going to sit here and say I am not racist, because then that leads to a whole other thing. I I had a teacher once say, I had a teacher once say that we are all racist, but we, based on our upbringings, based on how our parents were growing up, there's all these little things that sometimes you can't get rid of, and it's so unfortunate. But we can try to be better people and learn and grow and apply non racist things to our lives and do the best that we possibly can. And I think that is very important. Um, because even though deep down I can be like, I'm not racist, there are little things like this where I'm like, I didn't mean to notice the difference. And my best friend is black, like I don't treat them any differently, but I did notice it, and that was wrong in my part. But it's like, how could I not, because of the whole character thing? If she was just being cast for any other part, I wouldn't have noticed. Like, just a part in the movie, a random character, I would not have blinked twice. Would not have looked twice, because I have no problem with a person of color. But it's the context of they're playing a character who I grew up with, who does not look like that. And that's where it gets tricky. That's where it gets complex. Um, but nonetheless, I support Rick's casting, and I'm excited to see what they have to offer. I'm pretty sure that they're gonna, like I said, do great and bring so much to the table. Um, it's hard to talk about this without getting repetitive, but I think I've said all I need to say. It's a topic for conversation, and I think this is where the college part of me, the scholarly part of me, the curious part of me, and also the nervous part of me enters the conversation. And it it's like I just want to be able to talk about these things, and I don't know if there's answers for it, but let's talk about it, because it is a thing and it doesn't feel good. But is there any way to change that, or is there any way to make that better? Because I'm just approaching it the best way that I can, but maybe there's other better ways. So, yeah, with that being said, this is our cast. I'm so excited. I am thrilled to just be able to get this adaptation, and Rick trying his hardest to make sure that it's good, because he acknowledges that the other ones were not. And I know now not to blame the actors. And I am sure that the ones that he chose are going to be exceptional. That all being said, this is a topic for conversation. And so I want to know what you guys think. That's it. So, thank you. I can't wait to see the series. I hear it's gonna be a little bit more like Shadowhunters, where it's like each book is kind of like prolonged into like a whole season, and I'm excited about that. Shadowhunters ended way sooner than it should have, but it was a beautiful TV show, I think, with so many wonderful actors and actresses of color, and there were people of color cast for roles that were supposed to be not people of color. But I think I did not know the Shadowhunter world. I've only read up to book 2 to have noticed. And I think since I have read these books and have been so immersed in it, I noticed. And it didn't matter, but I noticed. So yeah.